Today I am talking about the power of no, and I think it's important for us to discuss this because it really is important that we improve our ability to say no so that we stop getting the results that we don't want. I wrote an article about this, and I thought rather than just leaving it to the article, which is coming out at some point this week or next, I would do a rough sort of précis of this for you guys because I think we are so quick to say yes. We are so hesitant to say no that it's really important that we learn that no can be a complete sentence. Now, loads of people struggle with saying no, me included. You know, that was something that I really struggled with. I'm a lot better now. I've taken a lot of practice. And it should be the easiest word in the world to say. It's very simple. It's two letters. N-O, no. And why do we struggle so much with saying it? And the problem that we seem to have about it is the power of that tiny little word on the people around us. And it's not just your children or your partner, it's also at work. Have you ever said no at work? Or have you ever said yes at work when you meant to say no? You know, they've given you an extra project and it's too big and there's no way you can fit it in without, half killing yourself, but you just say yes anyway because it's easier than making a scene. Now, a lot of my work involves helping clients to find their strength and to be able to say the word without fear or guilt. And the problem can be traced right back to childhood with so many people because it maintains its grip on them forever into adulthood and beyond. And most people struggle with the word because of fear, self-esteem issues, and a lack of boundaries. And it's no wonder because we don't really ever get taught these skills when we're a child. And then the habit gets formed, and then we feel that we have to say yes. And often there's a deeper fear that saying no will cause an unpleasant consequence or repercussion, and in some situations that may still be true, but for many it's no longer a useful interpretation of the situation. We worry about what others will think about us and what impact it will have on other people. We don't even think about the impact it will have on us. We just, keep quiet. We just agree to keep the peace. So many times there's a real fear that anything less than perfect is not good enough, and people see themselves as having to be perfect and having to keep everybody around them happy because it's not right to cause a scene and be seen as difficult because, that's not allowed. So what impact does this have on people? Because it affects people in many different ways. Because when they're at work, they feel a sense of obligation and responsibility. And then when they're asked to do something that takes them outside of their comfort zone, even though they're afraid that this may be really difficult for them, they don't want to be seen as incompetent or difficult, and they feel that they can't speak out and ask for support or help in completing a task that is very new or different for them. And there's often a deep-seated fear that they may lose their job or to be demoted at work if they cannot do everything asked of them perfectly, without realising that taking risks and learning from failure is perfectly natural. And in fact, how many inventions have come to pass? After all, it took Edison over 1,000 attempts to create the light bulb. And Fleming, he created penicillin by accident on a contaminated sample dish. There's other things that have been found by accident, other inventions that have come to light by accident. The microwave, LSD. I'm not sure about whether I should be encouraging you to take LSD. I don't think I should, but if you look up accidental discoveries or accidental experiments that created discoveries, life-changing discoveries, you will find a whole host of them. There's so many, and it's the same kind of fear that we apply to our private lives, because if we say no, it might have a negative impact on our relationship. It might cause a scene. It might make things awkward. I mean, what if your partner stops loving you or walks away because you said no? There's normally a lot of catastrophizing about this, even when the relationship is abusive or coercive. and the result of suffering in silence because you have not been able to say no can be wide ranging. It can affect your mood, it can affect your anxiety levels, it can affect your stress levels, it's even affecting your sleep. And when you have all of that going on, it bleeds into how productive you can be in your personal life as well as your work life. So I had a look at the impact of the pandemic on this situation, because it's intensified the problem. It's intensified people focusing more on their mental health, and work boundaries have become blurred because so many people are now working from home and they feel guilty that they're not in the office. And even though it's not by personal choice, in many cases, you know, you didn't get to choose whether you worked from home or worked from the office. You know, you were just told you have to work from home. And they feel that they don't have to do the commute anymore. So then they've got more time to do work. So when you feel there's an obligation that if your day of work, say, took 10 hours, so it's an hour travelling each way, 2 hours travelling, 8 hours at the desk, quite often people will then rationalise in their head, well, then I should be spending 10 hours working from home because I'll include that commute time. That doesn't have to be included. And one of the first things that I would suggest to you is that the world is slowly starting to adjust and open up in places. And there's also the guilt factor about responding to requests. People feel that they've missed out on so many events and so many celebrations that they think people are going to think really badly of them if they turn down the invites, and they don't want to be seen as a Grinch. So how do we get better at saying no? So the key to mastering this art is repetition. So it's not an overnight magic button, and it's if somebody could create an overnight magic button that enabled people to say no, I think they'd make a fortune, never have to work again. They'd make millions. To be able to get good at something, practice is the only thing that is required. And one of the first tips that I would give you is to stop and think about your fears about saying no. So why can't you say it? What exactly is it that you're scared of? Try and dig deep and think about what's the worst thing that would happen if you said no. And journaling is a great way to start identifying what's going on in your head. If you wrote down all the times you wanted to say no today but ended up saying yes, and then look at what you think would happen if you'd said no instead. Why was it difficult to say no? What was it about that situation that made you want to say no? And if you did that every day, you would start to see a real pattern coming up to the surface. And once you start to see the pattern coming up, then you can start figuring out things and challenging those thoughts that are standing in your way. Because if you said no, you couldn't meet for coffee, would you really lose that friendship that you've had for 20 years? If you didn't agree to take on extra work from Sheila in the office, would you really get the sack, or would you really be, sort of sent to Coventry by your workmates? And once you start to realise just how much you are catastrophizing, you can start replacing those thoughts with more realistic ones, and you can start looking at alternative solutions. So the fears that you have are recently, I don't mean recently, I mean frequently overblown. And once you see that you can start to be a little bit more grounded and realistic about those fears, then life gets so much easier. Regardless of how good you are or aren't at saying no, taking the time to reflect on our actions and decisions can make a real difference to how we see the world. And this is the ultimate time to change the things in your life that you want to change. When are we going to get a better time in our life, in our lifetime, to be able to actually say, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I want to have a happy life. I want to do what I want to do. Because so many people are becoming unemployed, so many people are changing their roles, so many people are changing their setup in terms of office and work home life, and so many people are sort of seeing life in a very different way because of Corona, that this is the opportune moment that if you're going to make a change, do it. Just do it now. Because setting up a new habit and practicing your responses daily means being brave and saying no when you need to, because it can make your life a vastly different experience. And it's a risk worth taking, surely. It can help you slow down, reflect, and think about why you do things before you go into automatic pilot and keep saying yes. You know, you have to look at the reasons why you say yes instead of no. And you have to look at, are we doing it because that's what society expects us to do? Or are we doing it because that's what we really want to do? Are we saying that because we're fearful of some kind of reaction if we say no? Well, is that reaction warranted? Yes or no? And if that reaction is not warranted, is that a situation that we want to continue to be in? Again, we have choices, yes, no. And so you can kind of, once you start journaling it and you start to realize the times that you say no, the world is not going to end, that the time you say no is not the end of the world. It really isn't. You know, friendships are not going to be lost. Relationships are not going to be lost just because you say no on occasion when it doesn't suit you. And one of the things that I frequently suggest to my family, and they they hate it, is no is a complete sentence. When I'm telling them to say no instead of keep saying yes to things. And I frequently roll it out and say no is a complete sentence. And they absolutely hate it because they know I'm right. They know I'm right. But it's so deeply ingrained in us because when we're children, we're told that we have to play nicely, we have to do as we're told, that we have to toe the line, that we have to not make a fuss, that we have to fit in. And all of those things don't include saying no. You don't get the choice to say no when you're growing up. And because it's actively discouraged, we're really bad at it. And that could just be the English way of doing things. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been brought up in another culture, so I don't know what it's like in other cultures. I can only tell you what it's like from my perspective. And from my perspective, we should have been taught to stand up for ourselves a lot better. But we weren't. So that's okay. We can fix that now.